9 Golden Age stars Johnny Carson thought were truly evil. For 30 years, America trusted these faces. They made us laugh. They made us dream. They became legends. But when the cameras stopped, some of them became monsters. Night after night, Johnny Carson watched Hollywood's biggest stars walk onto his stage wearing charm like a costume, and walk off revealing something far darker. This isn't rumor. This isn't gossip. These are the 9 Golden Age icons Johnny Carson saw up close, and quietly realized were nothing like the people we adored. Stay with us, because once you see who they really were, you'll never look at old Hollywood the same way again. Joan Crawford, the woman who performed Being Human. When Joan Crawford stepped onto the Tonight Show stage, America saw perfection. The posture was flawless. The smile was sculpted. Every movement carried the quiet authority of old Hollywood royalty. She didn't walk into the spotlight. The spotlight adjusted itself around her. Johnny Carson had interviewed presidents, war heroes, and icons. But even before the cameras rolled, he felt something shift that night. Not excitement. Not control. Hours before airtime, a memo arrived. 4 pages long. Lighting angles. Desk height. Camera distance. Studio temperature locked at exactly 67 degrees. No exceptions. This wasn't preparation. It was domination. And then came the moment Johnny never forgot. A young production assistant, barely 20, nervous, eager, entered Crawford's dressing room with a bottle of water she'd requested. What followed wasn't frustration. It wasn't impatience. It was annihilation. Witnesses later said the hallway went silent as Crawford unleashed a barrage of insults so precise, so vicious, they sounded rehearsed. She didn't just humiliate the girl. She erased her. Fire her, Crawford demanded. When the producer refused, the air turned cold. Not angry. Minutes later, the red light came on. And Joan Crawford transformed. She laughed exactly when she was supposed to. Spoke with elegance. Radiated humanity. America fell in love all over again. But Johnny watched something else. The second the cameras cut to commercial, her face went blank. Not tired. Not annoyed. Empty. She didn't speak. Didn't smile. Didn't acknowledge anyone. It was as if someone had flipped a switch and turned her off. Johnny tried to reach her. A joke, a question, a human moment. Nothing landed. Later, backstage, he turned to Ed McMahon and said quietly, "I've interviewed corpses with more personality." It wasn't cruelty. It was recognition. Johnny Carson understood performance. He built a career on it. But what unsettled him wasn't that Crawford acted on camera. It was that she seemed to be acting off camera too. Years later, when Mommy Dearest was published, when stories of wire hangers, fear, and emotional terror spilled into the public, Johnny didn't react with surprise. He simply nodded. "I saw who she really was," he said. "I believe every word." Because in that studio, away from applause and importance, Johnny had witnessed something Hollywood never wanted to admit. That stardom can polish a person until they look flawless, while hiding something hollow underneath. Joan Crawford wasn't cruel by accident. She was cruel by design. And that night, on a quiet studio floor, Johnny Carson saw the truth. Not a goddess, not a monster, but a woman who had mastered fame so completely, she forgot how to be human without it. Frank Sinatra, when charm became a weapon. When Frank Sinatra walked into The Tonight Show, the room didn't brighten. It tightened. On television, he was effortless. The voice, the smile, the swagger of a man who owned every note he sang and every room he entered. America saw confidence, control. But backstage, Johnny Carson felt something else. Pressure. Sinatra never arrived alone. He came with men who didn't look like show business. No jokes. No small talk. Just eyes that scanned the room like it needed watching. They didn't say a word. And somehow, that was worse. Crew members lowered their voices. Nobody wanted to be the one who made a mistake. Because mistakes, with Sinatra, were paid for. During one taping, a floor manager did what he'd done 1,000 times before. Standard protocol. 3-minute warning. Sinatra snapped. He grabbed the man by the tie and pulled him close enough to feel his breath. "Nobody tells me when I've got 3 minutes," he growled. "I go on when I'm ready." The man, a Korean War veteran, walked away shaken, humiliated, reduced to silence in front of his own team. From his monitor, Johnny Carson watched it all. For a moment, he considered canceling the segment entirely. But producers reminded him of ratings, of legacy, of Frank Sinatra. So the show went on. On camera, they laughed. They smiled. They played their parts like professionals. The audience never knew. But during a commercial break, Sinatra crossed a line he couldn't uncross. He made a cruel remark about a female staff member's appearance, loud enough for her to hear and for others to freeze. Johnny didn't raise his voice. He didn't joke it away. He looked Sinatra dead in the eye and said calmly, "We don't talk about my staff that way here." The room stopped breathing. For the first time that night, Sinatra's charm flickered. The smile tightened. The power shifted. When the cameras came back on, Johnny's questions changed. Shorter, sharper, controlled. After the taping, Johnny turned to his producer. "I don't care what he draws," he said. "Once a year. Maximum." It was nearly unheard of. Johnny rarely interfered with bookings. But this wasn't about television. It was about fear masquerading as respect. Frank Sinatra was the voice of a generation. But Johnny Carson saw what fame had given him, the belief that intimidation was authority. And Johnny rejected it, because to him, character wasn't revealed in applause. It was revealed in how a man treated people who had nothing to offer him. No fame, no power, no protection. When the red light turned off, the chairman of the board became just another man, who confused being feared with being admired. And Johnny Carson never forgot the difference. Orson Welles, when genius refused to share the room. Orson Welles didn't enter The Tonight Show like a guest. He arrived like a proclamation. Before he ever set foot on stage, the warning signs were already there. The writers handed him the questions Johnny's team had prepared, thoughtful, sharp, designed to let a legend shine. Welles crossed them out. Every single one. He returned the page blank and declared them beneath him. This wasn't collaboration. It was conquest. On camera, Orson Welles was mesmerizing. That voice, rich, thunderous, commanding. Stories of cinema, art, brilliance poured out of him like scripture. The audience leaned forward. But backstage, something very different unfolded. Welles didn't speak to production assistants. He spoke around them. "Tell the girl I need more water," he said once, while she stood right in front of him. He issued commands instead of requests, directions instead of gratitude. At one point, he even attempted to direct camera angles mid-interview, as if the entire show had become an extension of his will. Johnny Carson was a master of rhythm. Live television was choreography, invisible, precise, fragile. And Orson Welles shattered it. Scheduled for 7 minutes, Welles spoke for 25. Johnny tried everything. A glance, a gesture, a gentle interruption. Nothing worked. 2 other guests were cut that night. Entire stories erased because one man refused to stop speaking. From the outside, it looked like brilliance unchained. From Johnny's chair, it felt like theft. After the show, Johnny turned to Ed McMahon. "Genius doesn't excuse everything," he said. It wasn't anger. It was clarity. Johnny admired Welles. Citizen Kane mattered. The talent was undeniable. But admiration didn't mean surrender. To Johnny, being a guest meant entering a shared space. One built on timing, respect, and trust. Welles didn't share space. He occupied it. Over time, his appearances became rare. Not because Johnny feared his intellect, but because ego had replaced curiosity. There was nothing left to discover. Everything had already been written by Orson Welles for Orson Welles. To the public, he was a titan. To Johnny Carson, he was something else entirely. A warning that the most dangerous illusion in show business isn't fame. It's believing your own myth. And once you do, there's no room left for anyone else in the room. Bette Davis, when words drew blood. Bette Davis didn't raise her voice to dominate a room. She didn't need to. Her words did the work for her. From the moment she stepped into the Tonight Show studio, the air sharpened. Not tense. Focused. Bette Davis didn't enter conversations, she dissected them. On camera, she was electric. Stories from Hollywood's golden age spilled out with wit and bite, her eyes alive with intelligence and challenge. The audience loved her for it. But backstage, the same precision cut deeper. If someone kept her waiting, she made sure the hallway knew. If another guest spoke too long, she turned her body away from them, reclaiming the spotlight without saying a word. It was silent domination. Johnny Carson once joked to Ed McMahon, "No one should be cross-examined by Bette Davis without a lawyer present." It was funny because it was true. Davis didn't converse. She challenged. Younger guests learned quickly to tread carefully. Interruptions came wrapped as wit. Dismissals disguised as humor. And then there were the moments the audience never saw. Sexist remarks tossed casually. Cruel jokes aimed downward. A makeup artist dismissed with a sneer about shaking hands. In another era, it might have been excused as sharpness. On Johnny's set, it crossed a line. The breaking point came quietly. During rehearsal, Davis berated a cue card holder, a low-level crew member doing exactly what he'd been trained to do. The words were sharp enough to draw silence. Johnny didn't interrupt the show. He waited. Then he stepped forward. "Miss Davis," he said calmly, "on this show, we speak to everyone with respect, or we don't speak at all." For the first time, Bette Davis stopped. She didn't argue. She didn't explode. She backed down. But something shifted. The respect remained. The warmth did not. Johnny never denied her greatness. The talent was real. The legacy earned. But after her final appearance, he turned to his producer and said something simple. "That's the last time. Life's too short to be verbally flogged by Bette Davis, no matter how many Oscars she has." It wasn't revenge. It was boundaries. To Johnny Carson, greatness without grace was incomplete. Because the truest measure of a guest wasn't how brilliantly they performed under the lights, but how gently they moved through the lives of the people who made that performance possible. And Bette Davis, for all her brilliance, left bruises where gratitude should have been. Mickey Rooney, when nostalgia turned uncomfortable. When Mickey Rooney's name appeared on the Tonight Show schedule, the reaction backstage was never excitement. It was uncertainty. America remembered the boy wonder, the smiling face, the boundless energy, the star who once ruled the box office and danced his way into history. But the man who arrived at NBC in the 1970s was someone else entirely. Sometimes Rooney burst through the halls overflowing with stories, jokes, and restless energy. Other times, he drifted in unfocused, slurring words, eyes glassy, leaving the crew guessing which version they'd be forced to manage. The staff learned quickly. When Rooney was booked, caution followed. Female production assistants quietly asked to be reassigned. Not because they were afraid, but because experience had taught them professionalism offered no protection. A hand held too long while delivering water. A wrist grabbed just a second past comfort. Questions about marriage whispered too close. Nothing violent. Nothing dramatic. Just enough to make a room feel unsafe. Johnny Carson noticed everything. After one especially troubling taping, he turned to his producer and said, not with anger but disappointment, "He thinks being short gives him license to be a pervert." The words weren't cruel. They were weary. The moment that sealed it came on camera. During a segment, Rooney launched into a rambling, inappropriate story about Judy Garland, unfiltered, unsteady, impossible to redirect. Johnny was forced to cut him off mid-sentence. During the break, Johnny asked quietly, "Is he drunk? Or is this just who he is now?" The hardest part wasn't the behavior. It was the absence of awareness. Rooney came from a Hollywood where stars were never corrected, where boundaries didn't exist, especially for men like him. But times had changed, and Johnny Carson refused to let his stage pretend they hadn't. After one appearance, Johnny sought out a young actress who had endured Rooney's comments and apologized personally. "That's not how professionals act on my show," he told her. "And it won't happen again." From then on, Rooney's appearances became rare. When they did happen, Johnny insisted on daytime tapings. Fewer staff. Shorter segments. Tighter control. Not to punish Rooney. To protect everyone else. Because nostalgia, no matter how powerful, could not excuse making someone feel small in the very place they came to feel seen. Mickey Rooney had once been America's golden boy. But to Johnny Carson, what mattered wasn't who someone used to be. It was who they were when no one stopped them. Zsa Zsa Gabor, when glamour became disruption. Zsa Zsa Gabor didn't arrive like a threat. She arrived like a whirlwind. Diamonds. Accents. Laughter. A presence so oversized it bent the room around her. On camera, she was a dream, playful, flirtatious, exaggerated in a way audiences adored. She didn't just appear on The Tonight Show. She performed Zsa Zsa Gabor. And it worked. But behind the curtain, Johnny Carson felt something unravel. Because Zsa Zsa wasn't dangerous the way others had been. She wasn't cruel. She wasn't intimidating. She was exhausting. Her list of demands arrived before she did, and read like satire. The dressing room set to exactly 74 degrees. Fresh orchids only, never carnations. Perrier with exactly 3 ice cubes. No female guests under 40 on the same episode. She even insisted on flying in her own lighting technician, at the network's expense. When the staff first read it, they laughed. Then they realized she was serious. If one detail was wrong, one flower, one temperature setting, one cosmetic brand, Zsa Zsa refused to leave her dressing room. Tapings stalled. Schedules collapsed. The machine Johnny had spent decades perfecting began to shake. The breaking point came over makeup. Her preferred foundation wasn't available. Zsa Zsa erupted. The head makeup artist, a veteran, respected, unflappable, was berated in front of her staff. Orders were barked to send someone to Beverly Hills immediately. That day, Johnny stepped in himself. He didn't scold her. He didn't embarrass her. He called her. "Zsa, honey," he said gently. "You look beautiful already. We've got a show to do. Let's save the cosmetic emergency for another day." Only Johnny Carson could deliver firmness wrapped in charm. She relented. Barely. What frustrated Johnny wasn't the diva behavior itself. It was the collateral damage. Other guests waiting in hallways. Crew members working overtime. A perfectly choreographed show thrown into chaos by one person's self-importance. And yet, she kept coming back. Because when the red light turned on, Zsa Zsa delivered. She sparkled. She flirted. She made America laugh. She turned backstage mayhem into television gold. But each appearance left Johnny wondering the same thing. At what cost? Zsa Zsa Gabor wasn't a villain. She didn't seek to hurt anyone. But her indifference to the labor, time, and respect of others made her a different kind of problem, one glamour couldn't excuse. To Johnny Carson, grace didn't end when the cameras rolled. And anyone who treated the people behind the scenes as invisible, no matter how charming, was quietly failing the real test. Because show business isn't built by stars alone. It's held together by everyone they step over to shine. Shelley Winters, when truth arrived without permission. Shelley Winters didn't walk onto The Tonight Show with polish. She arrived with fire. No rehearsed charm. No measured anecdotes. No intention of being contained. Johnny Carson once said, only half joking, "Shelley doesn't talk, she detonates." And everyone backstage knew exactly what he meant. Shelley Winters was a 2-time Oscar winner, a veteran of Hollywood's hardest edges. Her talent was undeniable. Her presence immediate. But unlike other guests, Shelley didn't wear a mask. She didn't believe in them. One moment she'd be telling a warm, hilarious story about Marlon Brando. The next, she'd pivot, without warning, into a furious monologue about war, politics, betrayal, or the cruelty of men in power. The audience didn't know whether to laugh, applaud, or hold their breath. Johnny did his best to steer. He always did. But Shelley wasn't a car. She was a tornado. Directors took precautions when she was booked. Props quietly removed. Blocking adjusted. Not because they feared her, but because they respected the unpredictability. Shelley had a reputation. On another talk show, she once threw a drink in a co-star's face after a sexist remark. That energy followed her everywhere. And yet, Johnny never banned her. Because Shelley's chaos came from something rare. Honesty. She wasn't calculating. She wasn't cruel for sport. She wasn't protecting an image. She was bleeding in public. During one appearance, Shelley launched into a blistering critique of the Vietnam War. Live television, no safety net. The room froze. This wasn't late-night banter. This was raw conviction. When the show ended, producers waited for Johnny's reaction. He didn't explode. He didn't scold. He leaned back and said quietly, "I may not want a vacation with her, but at least she means every word she says." It was the highest compliment Johnny Carson could give. Shelley Winters tested every boundary of format, timing, and comfort. She made the show harder. She made the audience uneasy. But she never pretended. In a world of practiced smiles and controlled personas, Shelley arrived with all her edges exposed, grief, rage, passion, and truth tangled together. Johnny believed television worked best when discovery was possible. With Shelley, discovery was unavoidable. She reminded him, and everyone watching, that authenticity doesn't always arrive politely. Sometimes it crashes through the door, knocks over the furniture, and dares you to look away. And Johnny Carson, for all his love of control and rhythm, respected that kind of courage. Because while fame is a performance, truth, even messy, uncomfortable truth, is never rehearsed. Jane Russell. When beauty could not hide contempt. Jane Russell arrived wrapped in legend. The silver screen allure. The timeless beauty. The kind of star who didn't just belong to Hollywood's golden age, she helped define it. On camera, she was everything America remembered. Playful. Effortlessly charming. Johnny Carson welcomed her the way he welcomed many icons before her, with respect, nostalgia, and an open chair. But behind the scenes, something felt off. It started quietly. A comment in the makeup room that made people uncomfortable. A request that felt less like preference and more like exclusion. A tone that lingered just long enough to be noticed and remembered. Then came the moment Johnny couldn't ignore. Jane Russell reportedly refused to be touched by a gay makeup artist, demanding a replacement without explanation, without apology. In another instance, she insisted she not be booked on the same episode as Rock Hudson, her words carefully coded, but unmistakable in meaning. This wasn't temperament. This wasn't diva behavior. This was prejudice. Johnny Carson was not a crusader. He kept politics off his stage. His job was laughter, not lectures. But his studio was his responsibility. And the people who worked there, many of them quietly LGBTQ+, long before it was safe to be visible, were under his protection. During one commercial break, Russell made disparaging remarks about civil rights legislation. The microphones didn't catch it. The crew did. When the words reached Johnny, witnesses said his face changed. Not angry. Disappointed. Jane Russell finished the show without incident. No confrontation. No scene. And then something telling happened. She was never booked again. In an era when networks often looked the other way, when stars were indulged, excused, protected, Johnny Carson made a different choice. He didn't shame her. He didn't expose her. He simply closed the door. Because to Johnny, the issue wasn't disagreement. It was dehumanization. Talent could earn applause. Beauty could earn admiration. But neither granted permission to treat others as lesser. Jane Russell dazzled under studio lights. But behind them, Johnny saw something he couldn't unsee. And no amount of glamour could outweigh compassion. Because on The Tonight Show, everyone mattered, not just the people in front of the camera, but the ones who made the camera possible. And for Johnny Carson, that belief was non-negotiable. Jerry Lewis. When laughter hid something ugly. Jerry Lewis was America's clown. The genius of slapstick. The man who made children laugh and audiences cry. The humanitarian who held the nation in his hands every year, raising millions for those who needed it most. To the public, he was kindness personified. To Johnny Carson, he was something else. From the moment Jerry Lewis arrived at The Tonight Show, tension followed. Not the playful kind. Not creative friction. Something colder. Lewis didn't just interrupt Johnny on air. He invaded him. Once, mid-interview, Jerry reached over and adjusted Johnny's tie without asking, as if the stage belonged to him. Johnny, famously guarded about personal space, froze. It wasn't comedy. It was dominance. But what disturbed Johnny far more wasn't what happened under the lights. It was what happened in the shadows. Lewis treated the crew like furniture. Names were never learned. Orders were barked. Mistakes were punished publicly. During one rehearsal, Lewis stopped everything to berate a camera operator. "He breathes like an amateur," he shouted, demanding the man be removed. The operator had allergies. That didn't matter. Johnny had seen egos before. He'd endured arrogance, entitlement, tantrums. But this was different. There was no warmth underneath. No self-awareness. No apology waiting to surface. After one particularly brutal appearance, Johnny turned to someone backstage and said quietly, "Here's what happens when ego outruns talent." What made it worse was the hypocrisy. America watched Jerry Lewis weep on television for sick children. They saw compassion. They saw devotion. Johnny saw the other face. The one that humiliated people who could offer nothing in return. The one that mistook cruelty for authority. After Lewis's final appearance in the early 1980s, Johnny didn't argue. He didn't vent. He didn't explain. He turned to his executive producer and said, "Never again." Years later, at a private dinner, someone mentioned Jerry Lewis's name. Johnny paused, then said something that silenced the table. "In a town full of phonies," he said, "he stands out as truly hateful. And that takes some doing." For a man known for restraint, it was devastating. Because Johnny Carson built his life on laughter. But he understood a truth most never see. How a person treats those who can do nothing for them is the truest mirror of who they are. Jerry Lewis had two faces. One adored by millions. One remembered by those who stood just off camera. And Johnny Carson never forgot which one he saw. Johnny Carson never set out to expose anyone. He didn't shout. He didn't scandalize. He simply watched. Night after night, while America laughed and applauded, Johnny paid attention to what happened when the red light turned off. And what he learned was simple and devastating. Fame is a performance. Talent is not character. And the truest test of who someone really is how they treat the people who can do nothing for them. So before you idolize another legend, before you believe another perfectly polished image, ask yourself this: who are they when no one's watching? If this story made you see Hollywood, or people, a little differently, tap like, subscribe, and share it with someone who still believes the spotlight tells the whole truth. Because the real story always lives just off camera.